Welcome to the live stream, YouTube. This is not a video that I really care to make. I wish this weren't even happening right now. But last night we all saw what happened to Chris Bassitt. The line drive to his head, 100 miles an hour off the bat of Brian Goodwin. And he was in the hospital, but this morning the A's put out this medical update. We really needed this last night. I felt a lot of people were so uneasy going to bed, what they witnessed, how the rest of the evening played out. No new information, but today, this. And I'm going to leave it up on the screen. You can already read it yourself. I'll go through it here in just a second, but I'm probably going to leave this medical update on the screen for the majority of this video, just so that anybody tuning in here for the live edition of it can catch it and soak it in. This is most important right now. Chris was released from Rush University Medical Center last night. Rush is the name of the hospital, just to be clear. I know a lot of people may think it was rushed. No, that's the name of the hospital. He received stitches for 2 facial lacerations and was diagnosed with a displaced tripod fracture in his right cheek that will require surgery. An exam of his right eye was normal for vision, and no other damage is currently noted in the eye or the orbital bone. In addition, a head CT scan revealed no further injury. We're grateful to the White Sox, their medical staff, and the doctors and nurses at Rush for their excellent care. We'll have more information on Chris as it becomes available. So just to digest this first, and then there are so many other things to unpack, questions I've seen among A's fans on social media, some thoughts, some commentary on this. Number one, let's begin with Chris and this update. First off, I'm so thankful that a lot of the worst case scenarios seem to be ruled out. Eyesight, vision, life complications here, all right? And I understand there is the conversation to be had of people want him to be playing baseball. He wants to be playing baseball, of course. Of course. That goes without saying, but let's get to the important stuff first. Life, vision, quality of life. It seems like all that stuff is going to be just fine. And it also is important to note here that a head CT scan revealed no further injury, no swelling of the brain. It sounds like a concussion was largely avoided. I'm surprised by that. In all the hockey injuries I've ever seen to the face, anywhere to the head, you get swelling, which results in some form of a concussion. But it seems like that's not the case here. Again, don't take this from me as a medical professional. Take this from me as just an observer of sports and injuries. And we've all seen a lot of different things happen, but this one completely scary. So he is fine in terms of vision, fine in terms of a concussion. It does seem like the surgery is going to take care of repairing, what could be some shattered bones, a displaced tripod fracture in his right cheek. Any type of bone break that requires surgery, you understand, is pretty major. And so that's what Chris is going to undergo. Timeline right now, you know what? My mind can't even, it wanders there. How long will this take? It goes there for a second. And then it comes right back to reality and what matters most. It seems like he's going to be okay. And that's the number one right now. Just to recap, I know you've already seen the clips on social media. You already know what happened last night, but 100 miles off the bat. And it is possible, I do believe, that exit velocity, when it's measured, a ball can actually, I think, speed up, right? And I'm not completely positive, but it does seem like off the bat may not be the hardest that ball was traveling as it gains kind of some force, some momentum, and then obviously drag and aerodynamics are going to take place. But it's possible that baseball hit Chris more like 120 miles an hour, square in his face. And I know a lot of people have put out the idea of, well, should pitchers go back to wearing a protective hat? Should there be more to protect pitchers? This is the most brutal injury in all of baseball. It absolutely is. I mean, a play at the plate is not like this, typically. Getting hit by a pitch is not this bad and scary, typically. But I don't think it's possible to prevent at all what happened last night to Chris Bassitt. pitchers are taught to finish their pitch in a defensive position, be ready for the baseball. Honestly, he was. He literally had hand and glove up like this, and somehow it found a way to split the middle. So this is one of those things I look back on and say, well, what would have made this any different? What could Chris have done any different? And not even, this is not even to play the blame game. This is to protect other people from this ever happening again. And clearly in baseball, it's been happening a lot in recent years. Hitters are getting stronger. Pitchers are throwing harder. That cuts down reaction time, and that makes things like this happen a lot more. As Dontrelle Willis pointed out last night on post-game live, this is why at youth levels of baseball, they've changed the bats. They've dialed down the bats specifically, not wood bats, but all the aluminum and metal bats. They've dialed them down to avoid situations like this. But I don't think anything, like I said, any other protective measure, aside from moving the mound back another foot or two, but that's ridiculous. And even then, we're talking about still a split second to cover up. And, I go back to preventable. I don't think so at all. So I know that's been thrown out there, that's been mentioned, but I don't think there's much really, unfortunately, to that conversation. And this is, I'm telling you, this is the worst thing you could see graphically and visually on a baseball diamond. Another thing that stuck out to me last night, and I'm realizing now, well, actually, I take it back. It didn't really jump out at me at all during the game. I think it was on my drive home that I realized, why didn't the game get suspended, postponed? And I don't know, in the moment, so much was happening. Your mind was 10 other places. It kind of seemed unrealistic to stop the game, or like that was even an option. Yeah, it wasn't a thing at that point. But if this happened again, what a dark and terrible thing to suggest, but should something similar like this ever present itself, I don't know, maybe that's a consideration. Players on both sides were emotionally distraught over this. They ended up finishing the game. Clearly you saw how it played out. I don't know. It's definitely a thought. I'm actually not here to make a point on it one way or the other, that the game should or shouldn't have continued. I don't know, but it's an interesting thing to think about. A couple other things here. You obviously hate to see this happen to anybody at any level of baseball, teammate, opponent, whoever. But I think what especially hit hard last night for A's fans was that it was Chris Bassitt, a player who's already overcome so many things in his career, the chip on his shoulder, pitching against the White Sox last night, who traded him away. 2014? Yeah, ahead of the 2015 season. And wanted to show them, like he always does, that, he's having an all-star season. He's having a Cy Young conversation season. And I will get to that before I sign off. I know a lot of people are saying, well, what about his season? What about the A's? What about the timeline? We'll cover this at the very end of the video. But I think a lot of people were just so taken back because of who this was. Like I said, they feel especially bad for anybody in this situation, but especially because it's literally one of the leaders of the team. In the clubhouse, in the rotation, in front of the microphone. Man, a leader, a father. Think about his family. I haven't even talked about that yet. We did discuss it plenty on TV last night, but think about a loved one for you. Going through that, he's around people he loves, his teammates, his work colleagues, but his family's not with him during that. You can imagine those phone calls and texts and maybe a FaceTime or two, and yikes. So it brings me all to the last point of this, and I'm almost not even ready to discuss it yet. Like, I don't want to get too deep into, well, what does this mean for his timeline? What does this mean for the A's season? That's all kind of selfish stuff at this point. Don't get me wrong. It's floating there somewhere in the back of my brain. But the number one thing is this, that the medical update is showing that there are no irreversible health effects and medical effects of what happened last night. The fact that he'll be able to survive. The vision I saw on a report from John Heyman was 20/20. Again, Chris was released last night. That's also good. He received stitches for 2 facial lacerations. We saw all the blood. Was diagnosed with a displaced tripod fracture that will require surgery. The exam of his right eye was normal for vision. That's tremendous. No other damage currently noted in the eye or the orbital bone. And that's another one. That orbital bone, if it fractures, it puts pressure on the eye socket. Again, we only learn these things because of sports usually, but we know that it can get complicated quick. In addition, the head CT scan revealed no further injury. That's tremendous. Grateful to the White Sox, everybody there who tended to Chris Bassitt. So let's, again, make sure that that's the priority. So I'm not going to put a whole lot of weight on, well, we can see what the calendar looks like. We're mid-August. Surgery? Coming back? Are we talking months? Because, oh man, it's even uncomfortable to even bring this up, honestly. It really is. Helping the team, obviously, we know what he means to the team. We know he's the guy every 6th day that goes out there and battles and typically gives you a win. Going into last night, the leader in wins in the American League, the leader in innings pitched in the American League, ace of your staff, Cy Young conversation. We literally were talking about that 30 minutes before this happened to Chris Bassitt, 6 batters into last night's game. So actually, you know what? I'm going to skip the whole deal on how the A's will miss him. That's obvious. I think what's eventually going to settle in, this is how I'll probably put it. What's eventually going to settle in is how disappointing this is. And now that we understand that a full recovery is likely, what's eventually going to sink in is how disappointing this is individually for Chris. To have this type of success in a season like this, team with full of promise and potential, and now it immediately hits a speed bump. It hits a stop sign. And yeah, I'm not even going to speculate on when he'll come back, but I'm just saying that no matter what, no matter if he misses 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, whatever, you understand my point. This is a huge stop sign in exactly what he was doing this year and what everybody was so happy and proud of him for. So that part, again, if we're going to get to the selfish part, if that's going to be our next evolution in this, fine. I'll see it. I'll say it. I don't want to dwell on that part too much right now because I'm more thankful for this. But I do think this is the evolution of the conversation, And now you're looking at a baseball team and a season where, if I told you out of spring training that down the very stretch you would not have Chris Bassitt and you would not have Ramon Laureano for obviously 2 different reasons, that's frustrating. That's a significant blow. And Josh Harrison, Starling Marte, Yan Gomes, Andrew Chafin, tremendous additions. Now think about those additions if they didn't happen. Where would this team be? So, to summarize, all of this rough, none of this tremendously fun. And this is the situation. It's good news for Chris Bassitt, right? Let's be honest. This is very good news compared to where our minds were last night. This eliminates a lot of those worst case scenarios. I feel so sorry, so sad that he had to go through it, but I am so thankful that this is the update we're receiving and not something else. You know what? I usually promote the channel at this point. No, not even going to do it. I wanted to come on here and make this video to not only give the update, but give some thoughts, talk about things that I know others are thinking about right now, and have this conversation. Because again, I think the reason I'm doing this, the reason you're watching this, the reason we all are interested in this is the high level of care and love and concern for Chris Bassitt. Phone's blowing up here with a bunch of text messages, so I'll tend to that. I will say goodbye, and I will see you tonight on A's Pregame Live.